This last thing here is cultural diversity. Cultural diversity in the fair housing. This is becoming a issue because even though we talked about this being a melting pot in 1776, traditionally there's been a lot of influx of refugees coming in from Burmese or Myanmar for religious issues. So we're getting that with then the Hispanic cultures coming. All of these cultures are different. And the problem that I have is I don't understand the cultures, and that's a problem. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, about we can be acceptance of other cultures. Sometimes other cultures are not acceptance of us or have some complete differences. And that's typically the cultural diversity defined just as means being different. And because of that, there are several different things that have happened before. All right. One of the things that I have been very lucky at is I deal a lot with the Burmese contingency here in the city. I've had several different people come through the school, and because of that, I've befriended a couple, and I have worked and have probably sold or actually been on the selling side, means working with the buyer, right? Shake your head yes, so I know you, yeah, because that's one of my pet peeves. The selling agent, all right, means I work with a buyer on probably 14 or 15 deals. Now, here's something that is quite scary to me about building rapport. Well, first of all, one of the things I will tell you is one of the easiest ways to build rapport, at least in my mind, is don't be stupid. But here's what I do. I literally ask, hey, I don't understand. Educate me. If you play it as that, which if you don't, then you probably don't understand. I don't understand. And I've asked, hey, explain to me this. Explain to me that. I don't understand. I'm sorry, I don't know. Can you help me? And most of the time, most people are pretty good about saying, yeah, that, the Punjab Indian is different than a Sikh Indian, and here's the difference. And, then you've got the Myanmar or the Burmese Christian is different than the Buddhist, and all of those things. So I typically ask. Now, I did have one quite frustrating experience. I had a guy, and his name was Kennedy, came to me and was going to go through class. And literally, here's what he told me. He said, I'm going through class to get my license. I don't really want to be a realtor, but most of my congregation don't trust white people. Quote, end quote. Literally, that's what he told me. He said, most of my congregation don't trust white people. So he was getting his license solely so that he could help his contingency because they didn't want to use a quote-unquote white realtor. All right? Now, long story short, they ended up using me because Kennedy halfway through decided he wasn't going to do it. And he actually translated a lot of times. But one of the things that I was telling you that he and I got kind of close because literally I asked him, I said, okay, let's talk about this. Explain to me. Tell me the difference. Why is this true? Why do you think this? And we actually struck up a pretty good rapport with him because of that, and I was open. I said, yeah, hey, traditionally white people think this, or, a white male thinks this, and I can talk to him about that because I'm a white male, And he literally started talking about, so-and-so and so-and-so, and then we had to get into the differences of, the government's different than a person, but one-on-one, yada, yada, yada. So, be careful. Don't use the Archie Bunker method. Don't be stupid. The best thing to do is just ask questions. What's your role that you play in the real estate transaction? If you don't understand, sit down with them and ask them, okay, I don't understand Spanish. Please talk me through what is your mindset or what's your theory? How does the Hispanic think different than maybe the white male? And maybe you can help me with that, all right? You also got to be aware of what's called steering. Steering is when you guide a person towards or away from a particular area of the city based on one of the 7 protected classes. My second day of license, I was almost accused of steering. I know. Hard to believe, right? Me making a violation. I was a Caldwell banker, and that Caldwell banker's not even around anymore. It was in Broad Ripple. We had a guy come in, and he's like, "Hola, ¿cómo está?" And I'm like, "¿Cómo está?" He said, I want to buy a house, but I want to live with other Hispanic people because I don't speak English very well. And I said, okay, well, let's go to Belmont, Washington. Right? Am I lying? All right. Now, no, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. The point being is that is considered steering because I was guiding him towards a place. Yes, I know, even though I was helping him, at least I thought I was. That is called steering. So he's like, okay, let me go out and talk to my wife. Let me come back in. As he went outside, my boss came in, and actually now Andy is actually the state representative in Minnesota, I believe. Came back in and says, Raymond, what are you doing? I'm like, I've got a client. He's like, no, you've got a lawsuit. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, you cannot do that. I said, but I'm helping the guy. I'm doing exactly what he asked. He said, you can't do that. That's steering. So the guy came back in, and he's like, hey, and Andy's like, look, dude, we got a problem. And the guy's like, look, I don't want any problems. And no problemo. I'm like, yes, no problem. So what we did is we sent him to the Hispanic consulate, and this is back when it was down at the, what was the train station? I can't even remember. And he left. And I told Andy, I'm like, dude, you killed my client. He's like, no, I saved your lawsuit. All right, so steering, you're not allowed to guide a person towards or away from a protected class or an area based on protected class. So about 2 weeks later, I'm standing there, and the guy comes back in. He's like, hola. I'm like, hola. He's like, I want to buy a house at Washington and Belmont. I said, da-da. And Andy's like, yes, but now he told you a geographic location, which we discriminate on all the time, right? Somebody wants to live in Speedway. That's fine. You can't say, hey, take me to where the Catholics live. That's a violation. That is called steering. You are not allowed to steer a person towards or away from, which brings us to the next problem. Marketing. This is the one that burns my butt, all right? It's a well-established marketing principle that narrowing the segment of a prospective customers you want to attract lets you create a more effective target messaging. You know, we actually have I wouldn't say a whole degree, but you've got a thing called a target market. What's the demographic? Who am I trying to get to? Which would ultimately lead you to a better bottom line. But fair housing says it's unlawful to discriminate against members for certain protected classes in providing real estate services, even if the groups don't fit into your target strategy. So I know a girl right now, and I'm not going to give you her name, on the west side of Indianapolis. Her friggin' yard signs are in Spanish. All right? More specifically, you can't make, print, or publish, or cause to be made all that stuff that we just talked about, that a rental dwelling, a discrimination based on race, color, religion, or an intention to make such preference, limitation, or discrimination. So it seems to me that making signs in the Hispanic language is discriminatory in practice. Now, this is where I want to say, and I'm going to go on a recording saying this, that I think we all understand what fair housing was designed to be. But I think when we get in the real world, we all want to be warm and fuzzy and deal with people that we understand. My brother got stationed in Germany when he was in the military. I went over to visit him with my mom and dad. We were there for about 3 friggin' weeks. All right? Now, what did I notice about being over there? I routinely tried to find someone that spoke English and wanted to talk to them. Why? I understand their culture. I understand their language. I knew, where they were from. I knew the location. It made more sense for me to talk to a person from the U.S. I had longer hair then. I was like on my shoulders, and I had a lady come up to me, and she's like, do you speak English? And of course, with being dark-haired, dark-eyed, big built, she probably thought I was that Bavarian. And I'm like, yes. She says, is this the train to the Zootspik Mountain? I said, yes, I believe it is. She said, do you know how much it costs? I said, I don't know. My brother's buying the tickets, but as soon as he comes out, I'm sure he would tell you. And she's like, your English is very good. How long have you been speaking English? I said, about 25 years, man. I'm from Indiana. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm from Texas. We're neighbors. Okay. But the point being is, she was looking for and speaking English. It makes more sense to go out and say, okay, bilingual, I want to help the Hispanic community. I'm going to put my signs in the Hispanic language. According to the fair housing rules, that's a violation. You can't do that. You can't make or publish or cause to be made any kind of notice, statement, or advertisement with respect to sale or rental of a dwelling that indicates any preference, limitation, or discrimination. Definitely, if you don't speak Spanish, you can't read the yard sign. That's a limitation. But now here comes the problem. What's the official language of the United States? Anybody? Anybody? Let me stop you. It's not English. There is no official language of the United States. Our forefathers thought that in advance. This was the melting pot. It just so happened that everybody that was somebody back then spoke English. So if I put a yard sign in English, does that discriminate against somebody that doesn't speak English that's here, whether legally or illegally? Yeah. So there's a problem with this whole marketing thing. You know, limitations looming over you. How do you create an effective market plan that focuses on one or more parts of the population without running afoul of the Housing Act? It's a difficult question. And guess what? There are no answers for it. You're right? To date, neither the courts nor the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development have provided specific guidance on some of the more gritty real-life questions. Is it okay to describe myself as Native American on a website so that prospective buyers who prefer to be working with a Native American can easily see me? Can I advertise as being a Catholic realtor? And then only the Catholics, is that a violation? I don't know. Unfortunately, until more of the guidelines get available, the only safe course is to focus your target market activities on what clearly permissible under the Fair Housing, even if it crimps your marketing strategy, okay? Basically, here's what you should avoid. Critical mistakes that base your marketing on prospective clients' memberships or non-memberships to any of the protected classes, all right? That means don't focus your business plan on tactics only to the Hispanic market or the Native American or the Catholics or the Caucasians. You know, right? Your marketing plan should be very diverse. Now, you can't market your services only to certain people on publications, TV, radio, print, and all that, even if that's your preferred target, okay? Now, the advertising restriction, which we touched on earlier, remember, applies to all forms of print and electronic communication. So even emails, radio, TV, billboards, yard signs, flyers, websites, all of that. Another one's, what about senior housing and reverse mortgages? That's a similar challenge. Although age is not a protected class on housing, it is in credit. Now, you can legally make customers aware of the fact that you are bilingual or that you help seniors, but you cannot specifically target that market because of this discriminatory, all right? Unless it's a qualified senior housing or a HUD market. So like in the over 55 housing, okay? Don't market on the basis of membership in a protected class, even if it's one you belong to. That's probably one of the things that I think most people look and go, well, targeting the Burmese market. Well, they're Burmese. Yeah, no, that's still a violation. They can't target market one of the markets, even if you're in it. Otherwise, I'd be targeting the fat person's market. We want to park close and roll up in there. And yeah. Where was I? I'm sorry. You can focus. It's not illegal for you to talk about yourself. For instance, you can say that I'm fluent in certain languages. You can also say certain specific skills, as long as you pitch your service to the population at large. I want to tell everybody that I speak Spanish. I don't want to just tell the Hispanic clients that I speak Spanish. You can't just talk about that ethnic group and indicate that you have, hey, I'm an Arabic speaker or Spanish or whatever. All right? If the prospects decide to choose you because of information you share that are similar, and you're not choosing them based on the similarities, it's okay. So what I'm saying is, if I put on my website, yo habla español, meaning I speak Spanish, and a person out there sees that and calls me because of that, as long as I'm advertising to everybody that I speak that is not a discriminatory factor, and that's okay. If you focus on property-related niche instead of a client-related one, once again, back to the property. So if you are a golf course person, condo, lakefront, that's probably better. Resort housing, homes on the historic registry, all of those would be perfectly legal to or lawful because it's more of the property description and not so much as being the person. You might once again, first-time home buyers is actually a description of a person. It doesn't mean that they couldn't be Hispanic first time or Asian home first time. So first-time home buyers is okay as well. You just don't want to say specializing in Hispanic buyers. That's a violation. All right. So you can follow the fair housing. You just have to make sure that you understand the rules and approach your market carefully and try not to seek out a niche market based on a personal quality, but more on a property quality. All right? Hang around. We're not done yet.